And yet, here you are, still filling the gap. You've read the books, probably a stack of them. You've done therapy, perhaps for years. You sat in the retreats, taken the courses, journaled the prompts, tried the breath work, read the philosophy. You know the language of nervous system regulation, attachment, boundaries, presence. So much so, you could probably teach a decent introductory class on most of it, right? And you're still here, still aware that something hasn't actually shifted. Even though you've done more of this work than most of the people that you know, let's go ahead and talk about this today. Come on. If this is you, I want to say something clearly before I say anything else. You don't need another book, another framework, another insight. You've collected enough of those to fill a library. What you're missing isn't information, it's integration. There's a specific kind of frustration that builds when you understand something deeply and still can't seem to live it consistently. You know intellectually that your reactivity is a nervous system response, not a character flaw. You know the boundary you need to set. You know the pattern you keep repeating and where it probably came from. In fact, all of this you can probably explain clearly to someone else. And yet, under that real pressure, the moment the thing is actually going down, you do the same thing you've always done anyway. If this is you, again, saying this clear before I say anything else, this is not a failure of understanding, as understanding was never your missing piece in the first place. The nervous system doesn't just change because the mind comprehends something. It changes through repeated, structured, embodied practice. The kind that happens in real life, in real time, under real conditions, and with real support, not just in a journal after the fact. This is the most common trap for people who are genuinely sophisticated about this work, mistaking deep understanding for actual change. And it's because the understanding, right, it feels so real and so hard won that it seems like it should be enough. But it isn't. And that, again, is not your fault. Early in this kind of work, more information genuinely helps. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so those books and courses and frameworks fill real gaps. But then there's a point, and if you've done this work for years, you've probably already passed it, where more content stops producing change. You're not missing a concept anymore. You're missing structure, a consistent, supported, real-time process for actually installing what you already understand into how you function day to day. This is why a lot of deeply aware people, well-read people, still find themselves repeating the same patterns. It's not because they haven't done the work, but because the work they've done, right, has almost been entirely on the level of understanding. And almost none of it has really been done structurally and supported through the level of implementation. Genuinely, installing a new way of operating, not just understanding it, but actually living from it, tends to require a few specific conditions that most self-directed learning just doesn't provide. The first is real-time support, not just retrospective insight. Most books and courses help you to understand your patterns after the fact. Integration happens when you have the support in the moment that the pattern is trying to run, which requires a relational structure, not just concept. The second is structural change, not just internal shift. You can have a profound insight about your boundaries and still live inside of a calendar, a set of relationships, and a daily rhythm that make really honoring those boundaries almost impossible. The architecture around you has to change too, not just your level of understanding them and understanding about yourself. The third is accountability that isn't self-generated. When you're the only one tracking whether you'll actually follow through or not, it's remarkably easy to quietly let things slide. When we still believe we're doing the work, right? So external structure changes this. And the fourth, perhaps the most important for people at this stage like you, is a container with enough depth to actually hold the work you've already done. You're not starting from zero here, are you? A process built for beginners will feel frustratingly shallow. You already know the concepts. What you need is a process built for someone who already has the foundation and is ready for the structural, embodied next layer. There's one more thing left naming here because it tends to go unspoken. When you've done a significant amount of inner work, you're often a lot more self-aware than the people around you, which means fewer people who can meet you at the depth you're actually working at. Friends offer advice for something you've worked through years ago. Colleagues don't get it. The books, they really start feeling repetitive. The retreats even, they just start feeling like a review. And that's not snobbery. It's a real structural problem here. The resources that helped you most in those earlier seasons stopped being enough. And what comes next isn't widely available or widely understood. Because most resources are actually built for people in those earlier stages of the process. So, if you're there, you're not behind. You're just at a stage where more content doesn't actually serve you. And recognizing that is not arrogance, it's pure accuracy. The work you've done has been real. The understanding you've built, also real. The gap between that understanding and how you actually show up under pressure, that's real too. So between now and your next video, I want you to notice one thing that you clearly understand about yourself that you haven't fully been able to consistently live. Doesn't have to be a whole dissertation, just one thing is fine, and hold on to that. Because I want you to get curious about this gap rather than being really frustrated by it. The gap isn't proof that you haven't done enough. It is the exact location where the next layer lives. Now, this is our final video in this playlist of ours, Beyond the Burnout, when success starts feeling like it. This has been a 5-part series on closing the gap between looking successful and actually feeling it. So if you watch all of those videos, all 5 of them in the series, and then you came around to this one and it's like, this one is hitting the hardest for you. It's not a coinky dink. This video was built for the person just like you who's been doing this work the longest and is ready for what actually comes next. Ecstatic Lifestyle OS is a guided 6-week installation process built specifically for people who already have the foundation and are ready for the structural, embodied next layer. I'm not talking about another content library here. We got enough of those. And not another framework to understand alone. I'm talking about a real relational architectural process, which is regulation, then structure, then capacity, that's built for exactly where you are right now. That link is in the description below. You can find all the information there. If the loneliest of this stage is what landed the hardest, the feeling of having outgrown the containers that used to help, I want you to watch this one next. It's linked right below. So go ahead and make sure you watch that video now before this energy dissipates. Thank you so much again for watching. My name is Destiny. It's been a pleasure being here with you, one breath at a time, and I'll see you next one. Peace.